Okay, I'm hoping people can hear me. If you can hear me, please let me know. I'm getting thumbs up from my buddy James over here. So, welcome to Culture War Games, a show that breaks down the right's dumbest moral panic of the week. I'm Kat Abagazale, and this week we'll be talking about the Trump administration's attempt to destroy the deep state, i.e., fire a huge amount of federal workers. I don't know why it seems like I'm flickering here, but let's try removing that. That doesn't work either. That's fine. But let's bring in this week's guest, Florida Representative Anna V. Eskamani. Since 2018, Anna has been fighting for Floridians across the state and delivering change rather than culture wars for her constituents. She recently succeeded in passing a permanent tax break on diapers for the state, which will save Florida families upwards of $100 million a year. While doing all of that, she also got her PhD, which I heard is difficult, and is currently running for Orlando mayor. Hi, Anna. How you doing?
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad to have you. We're going to talk about some bummer things. But first off, I want to ask what's a good thing that's happened to you lately that has nothing to do with work?
That's a really good question.
I'm going to do this every episode now because otherwise we're just going to cry.
Oh my gosh. I mean, okay, this one is bittersweet, so stick with me. One of my cats turned 21 years old, and I've had him since I was 13 years old, and it was really beautiful and amazing. We got him a shot glass for his birthday because he's finally legal. But then about 2 weeks later, he unfortunately passed away. So that's why I said it's very bittersweet. He was my cat since I was 13. But the fact that I got to be with him for 21 years is amazing. And I miss him so much. But at the same time, I'm just so grateful for like all the years I had with him. But I would be lying if I didn't say that 2025 is testing me. It has been a roller coaster of a year, and I can't believe it's still January.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been like a week of this administration. Like originally, I wrote a whole separate script about a whole dumb issue, and then I was like, well, we have to talk about the FedWorks subreddit, I guess.
Right.
And like,
Right.
I've also never had a cat. I'm about to reach like a
Oh,
year on my cat heater. I never pet a cat before like New Year's of last year because I'm allergic. And now
wow.
I'm like so emotionally dependent on her. Like I cry when I see like Reddit posts about cats. But 21, lovely.
Oh,
Rest in peace, King.
since we were 13, and I have twin sisters, so when I say we, I'm always referencing her. But I consider him my angel cat because my mom passed away that same year from a fight with cancer, and he walked into our life as a stray, about 2 months after her passing. And so I really do think my mom sent him down to be our little angel and to give us, someone to love and care for while we were going through that loss. And so I mean, I'm gonna have to get a tattoo or something. I swear, like this guy
Yes.
just huge impact in our lives, and so I'm so glad you get to experience that because any pet is, especially during these really like stressful times, just having that listener doesn't question you, doesn't troll you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just so nice to
absolutely.
have that.
Well, that was such a lovely note to start off a bunch of other stuff that'll be less lovely. First off, I do want to say, there was a horrific tragedy in DC yesterday. A helicopter ran into a regional airplane. DC, I consider it my home. I grew up in, Texas, but DC is like the first place I felt like I fit in. I love it so much. And we have helicopters everywhere. So I'm sure like anyone living in there right now is just,
Totally.
it's this anxiety. And I don't think they found any survivors so far. This is absolutely horrible. But the president is blaming this on
Oh
DEI with no
my
proof, which
god.
is, we should be talking about the victims. We should be talking about why this happened. But instead, we have to talk about this. And I know that you have to deal with this a lot in Florida, which is the
Absolutely.
kingdom of culture wars under DeSantis. So, how are you feeling?
It's so irresponsible what he's doing, and honestly, every day you think it just can't get any lower and any worse, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse.
In one
And
week?
right, I mean, it's just, what's so interesting. So I'm in my car right now because I'm just having one of those packed days back to
Yeah.
back.
Thanks
I
for joining
just
us, by the
left.
way.
Oh my god, of course. I just left a conference of the Florida Emergency Professionals Association, and this topic came up by one of the reporters that was covering the conference. And I'm looking around the room at all these professionals who've navigated so many disasters, so many crises, and I feel ashamed and embarrassed that the country's leader is someone who would rather spread misinformation than provide comfort and calm in this situation, which unfortunately we should know better. This was his first administration, and now he's just repeating it again. But watching that press conference, it was disgusting. I mean, I just couldn't even stand letting it happen, where I had to turn it off because it was just too much to watch. But it also just reminds me that the entire intent of culture wars, as you know, Kat, because you do such great work. I'm one of your biggest fans, watching you online, call out the BS and unpack it for people. But every culture war really is a distraction. It is designed to deflect responsibility. And also it goes back to really trying to divide people up into different segments of society so that you can maintain control.
And the goalposts can consistently move.
100%. 100%. And nothing that he does is by accident. It's very intentional, and it's shameful, because now when you Google, this disaster, what pops up? Not articles telling the story of what happened or what experts say, not even stories about the victims. It's stories about Trump DEI. And so my question is, why is mainstream media continuously feeding into this? Like, I just get so frustrated that mainstream media continues to just feed into the autocrat and does not seem ready to rise for the occasion. And that worries me greatly.
Yeah, it feels different this time around. We talked about that a little last week, where we talked about like DEI in the military with Gene Park and Elizabeth Warren. And it's just like, someone in the comments just said, I'm going to have to ignore the BS and keep my eyes on the prize to make it through another 4 years. And like, absolutely. But for, people like in my profession, it's one of those things where it's like, oh God, I wish we could ignore this. But at the same time, when we get another year in and this is an excuse to classify people or create different types of discrimination, then we'll have a timeline here. But like, it's all BS. Like, this person isn't wrong. It's anyways, well, great thoughts on this. It's
too. I see one of the
so
comments.
tiring.
It is. And I want to amplify one of the comments too, of how every culture war really is a class war. And I mean, 100%. We see that in Florida all the time. For example, culture wars that focus on public education are not attempting to secure some sort of moral high ground. The entire point is to distort public education, to defund public education, to erode our school boards, to create an environment where you want to pull your child out of a public school. And that further makes it very difficult for there to be an ultimate equalizer for kids of every background to have access to a high quality public education, which in my case, if I wasn't for my public schools, I would not be where I am today. And I grew up working class. And so it really was my public school system that gave me that shot to change my economic mobility. And so I just want to affirm that point, that every culture war really is a class war. And I know we're going to talk about the federal workers soon, but even the downsizing the federal government really is just about privatizing federal government. It's about siphoning contracts to your donors, who are then going to charge the government more for probably less of a service and then cut you political checks at the end of it. And I mean, it's so sick. And more people need to call it out for what it is.
Absolutely. I mean, it's disgusting. And like I always say, like, it's, the class supersedes everything else. And there are so many issues we have, but overall, this is 1% having so much more than 99. But I do want to go into talking about the federal workforce, which also applies to all of this. I mean, these are people that keep our government running. They're not like these rich, deep state bureaucrats that they're like, presented to be. Have you ever seen the salary? Like, someone in this chat or multiple people, every single one of them knows at least one public servant, whether they're aware of it or not. And they're not these, rich oligarchs. They're just people doing their job, serving the country. And I mean, you're one of them. You're a public servant. So we talked about Doge last week as well, but really this all like comes to Project 2025. Anna, have you ever heard of Project 2025?
Yes. And let me just take a moment to say, like, we told you so, right? Like every time Trump said, I don't know what that is. That, I mean, now you can just like do a, cut and paste next to each other. And it's like, is this exactly what we said was going to happen? I mean, it's just
I
so
always say,
frustrating.
like, I wish I wasn't right. I don't want to be right on
Right.
these things. Like that, I would
Right.
love for you to be able to say, I told you so. Like, you're so dramatic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but like Project 2025, one of the first things they mentioned, besides the fact that like pornography in libraries, which is defined by the Heritage Foundation, so probably like pictures of ovaries, should warrant a jail sentence. So like right after that, it talks about how
Right.
we need to get rid of the deep state in our public service. And it was said that like the minimum would be like 50,000 people fired almost immediately with this thing called Schedule F. And it was this attempt to like clean out the liberal rot. And not only would it make sure that only loyalists were left, but it would also essentially make the government useless, which is, like you said, they want to privatize these things. So that's
Yes.
making the government useless is not a bug, it's a feature.
Correct.
And so now we're at the point where they kind of have the ability to do this, or at least try. I feel like every single day I see a new insane leaked memo, and they just keep piling up, and it's like shit that doesn't matter. Like we shouldn't. I mean, that does matter, but it's like you wanted to fix the price of eggs. Why are we talking about ignoring Women's History Month? Like this is your priority.
Right.
So before we talk about like this insane letter that a shit ton of public servants got, I want to talk more about like the demographics that's in our public service, because it's not all like Black trans people. I'm not sure if you could guess that, but it's not. So the Partnership for Public Service is a nonprofit, nonpartisan nonprofit that goes into, public service and tries to encourage people to be civil servants. And I'm just going to put this up here in case anyone wants to look at it or scroll through it, check it out in their own time. I can throw the link in the chat right now. Amazing.
This is awesome. Yeah, it's great to have.
But let's just like describe this, because I didn't know this actually. 70% of our federal workforce is the defense agencies.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
What happens if you fire all those people?
Oh my God.
If you care about national security, 20% of those are the VA, 10% the Navy, about 10% Army, 9% Homeland Security. Like, what happens if you fire all those people?
Totally. It also feels very antithetical to what Republicans would typically do, right? Like, cutting defense spending is not really in their MO.
Yeah. Well, now it is, because remember, our military is woke now. They're all talking about white rage and trying to, get women. Imagine a woman in the military.
Serving in the military. God forbid.
Disgusting. What happens if they go on their period? I also didn't know that our federal workforce, 15.5% of it, like the biggest chunk, is medical. I had no idea.
Well, it's actually reflective in state governments too. Like Florida's biggest line item in our state budget is Health and Human Services, which, by the way, is very much federally backed. In fact, in Florida, we have a $117 billion budget. A third is funded by the federal government. So, I mean, I know we're talking about the workforce, but even these recent federal freezes, which I'm calling a cut, because I'm like, guys, they're not freezing these programs, cause chaos even in the state of Florida, which is basically run by Trump 2.0, right, under Governor DeSantis. And so this is the result of so much incompetence, but also intent, right? It's a combination of both. I think they intentionally are destroying government, but they're also so incompetent they don't exactly know how to do it without causing backlash, which honestly I'm really proud, because I do feel like the recent rescinding of that memo from OMB was only because of the backlash that everyday people helped to organize around. And so it should be a reminder to everyone that it is always worth fighting, even when this situation feels so dire, that people should not should not give up. Like, this is not the time to get quiet. This is the time to get loud.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great, but like, what would you say the main jobs, like even HHS in Florida, which provides health and human services for millions of
Oh,
people?
yeah.
Like, what are some of these jobs that I feel like people picture when they hear like government bureaucrat, they're picturing someone at their desk with their fingers like this, trying to, like just make everything
Right.
difficult for everyone. So like, what are some of these just like everyday normal jobs?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is going to be in child welfare, serving people with disabilities. It's going to be making house visits. If we think about even child protective services or elder resources, so the Department of Elder Affairs in the state of Florida, which is going to be also supplementing programs like Meals on Wheels or running state nursing home facilities, which the federal government also operates several veterans nursing homes across the country. I mean, these are the type of services and responsibilities we're talking about. Oftentimes, it's also folks who are, of course, managing call centers, right? I mean, we always complain about how it's impossible to get into anyone at the IRS. That's because they're underfunded and overworked. And we see that at multiple federal and state agencies. SSI offices, right? So SSI offices are serving very vulnerable people who have disabilities, who have huge needs, and are trying to access their benefits through government officials. And so that's what we're talking about. It's very selfless work. As you mentioned, these are public servants, and many of them are not that political. They just want to go home and do their job. That's what it comes down to. I'm sure some of them voted for Trump. That's the irony, right? Is that they
Yeah.
probably, I don't know what the demographics are electorally, but I mean, based on how the country voted, I think you could assume that it was going to be a pretty 50-50 cut here, right? Because folks have very diverse viewpoints. And if you're voting on the economy, it doesn't matter what your job is, you're still feeling the struggles if you're a working class, middle class American. And that's what defines our federal workforce.
Well, it's so interesting that you said that because I actually have the demographics on that. Maybe not politically, but like, I
Oh, okay.
I grew up in
Yeah.
Texas, and then I consider DC my home. So, two of these things I'm about to mention, like I've had a lot of experience in both. Only 20% of the federal workforce is in the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia area. 80% is outside the DMV, with those being California, Texas, and Florida. So like
Wow.
it's a lot of these people presumably voted for Trump. And I mean, when like Fed stuff gets cut, when federal things get cut, or if Floridian federal workers that maybe voted for Trump, maybe didn't get fired, like what's going to happen? Is like this is a significant part of your economy. What's going to happen? What's the risk here?
There's several, and we're already feeling the pains of it. I mean, I've had after the executive order on DEI programs, I had Floridians reach out to me because they lost their jobs. They were either working directly with the federal government or they were contracted through another employer and automatically just lost their jobs. And now they're applying for unemployment benefits in a very broken system in Florida, and they're going to have to find new jobs. I mean, we continuously overestimate the ripple effect of these types of decisions. And in a red state like Florida, in some of our counties, especially our fiscally constrained counties that are very conservative, the biggest employer is government. Whether it's in the school system, the medical system, or the prison system, that is the employer. And at the end of the day, on this path to privatization, what happens? Contracts are given to friends of politicians who take your tax dollars, oftentimes to deliver a product that is less efficient, more expensive. And like I said, they turn around and cut a check to those same politicians who gave them those contracts. I mean, especially in Florida, we have seen this game before. And it's also a tactic of union busting because a lot of these federal workers are going to be members of a union. And so when you privatize them, it also creates an environment where they don't have union representation. So it belittles workers' rights and workers' benefits. And this vicious cycle just continues.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing on like these demographics that I think is interesting of like this vicious cycle is it's not just like Black people, women, and gay people. 60% of the federal workforce is white, 55% is male, 30% are veterans, and veterans only make up 5% of the civilian workforce. And they only account for 4.3% of the budget. So this isn't like this is vindictive. It's not, accounting, which brings me to the Office of Personnel Management email. Did you see this?
Oh, yes, I did. But please, let's read it for the crowd.
Let's do it. So there was this email that was sent to like every federal employee, and it should be noted that all the reporting that I can see that this was not possible. Like OPM, which is the Office of Personnel Management, could not send emails like this across agencies. Before, it would be like sent to an agency and then disseminated to that agency. But this happened, and apparently they're getting like weird test emails. But essentially, employees were given this email that said that there would be 4 pillars. It was called Fork in the Road: returning to the office, performance culture, a more streamlined workforce, and then enhanced standards of conduct that would stress loyalty, reliability, and trustworthiness. What that means, who knows? I have some guesses, but who knows? And
it's
so they
so
were
unhinged.
Unhinged. If you want to see something really unhinged, I'll get to this in a second, but they were told that you can resign and be given essentially like 8 months till September 30th of pay and benefits, regardless of what. All you have to do is reply with nothing in the body of the email, just resign in the subject line and then hit send. And then there's this frequently asked questions thing that I was looking at, and totally unhinged. It says, the federal workforce is expected to undergo significant near-term changes. As a result of these changes, you may wish to depart the federal government on terms that provide you with sufficient time and economic security to plan for your future and have a nice vacation. A vacation. Oh my God. I can guess who wrote this. But before I get into this is obviously sketchy. I mean, would you believe this?
It's super
like,
sketchy.
If you got this email, would you take it?
Honestly, at first, it feels like a phishing scheme.
That's what some people were saying. They were like, this is an embedded link. I was told not to do this in like the office tech things.
Right. It literally feels like if I click on this, I'm sending money to like, a Nigerian prince somewhere. But no, I mean, it is, I mean, clearly a product of first of all, it is dear leader shit. I saw that in the chat. It is dear leader shit, which is Elon Musk. Like, I mean, it is so unhinged. It is so unhinged. And I just, what we forget, right, is that federal workers are their moms, their dads, their grandparents. They have families to take care of. Many of them have committed decades to serving their communities, to serving the federal government. And it just really breaks my heart at the same time. I mean, as absurd as this is, I mean, we're talking about real people and their livelihoods, right? People who have just dedicated their entire lives to this work, now being treated in such a disrespectful way. It's just, it's so frustrating.
I mean, Elon Musk tweeted something where someone was like, you had to hit send there because federal employees wouldn't know how to do that. And it's like, it's so disrespectful. But totally. I do want to say this right here, this smells like a lawsuit. You've got good instincts, buddy. Yeah. So this is an actual page from the Alden Law Group, which represents federal employees. And they were like, do not take this deal. There's no guarantee that you'll be placed on administration leave or given any additional benefits. If you do it, there's no guarantee that you can revoke it either. This is just completely sketchy. We don't know what's going on. And now there is a lawsuit that is being filed by federal employees. And that is because this is sketchy as fuck. And it has Elon Musk's fingerprints all over it. The phrase fork in the road is just in second place under the letter X in terms of fixations for him. Totally. He had a piece of art commissioned, 100%. Fork in the road. His notorious hardcore email to Twitter employees that basically said the exact same thing. And he has not paid those Twitter employees or didn't for a while. I'm not sure the status of that lawsuit. Also called Fork in the Road. Right. And then like also the Washington Post reported, I believe today, that Trump administration officials were blindsided. They had no idea. Doge was only supposed to give recommendations to Congress, and now they're sending
directions, setting the bar.
Send it like ones that have no bagging. I mean, you're basically guaranteeing 8 months of pay per person, which is a shit ton of money. If everyone took that, also, once again, what would happen to say our, Defense Department? What would happen to our Navy if everyone took this? And so there is
why they want to cut Medicaid, right? Like to pay for this crazy shit. Like, I mean, none of this is happening in a vacuum. And I do think one of the challenges we have right now is so much is being thrown at us. I mean, I think I read somewhere that in the last like week, there's been 100 days of news, in a very short period of time. That's on purpose, not only to overwhelm us and push us to disconnect, but it's all connected. In fact, I was listening to NPR, which is also, of course, on the block, right? I was listening to NPR, super woke, on my way to the state capitol earlier this week, and they were, before this unhinged memo came out, they were talking about forcing federal workers to come into the office, and they were interviewing a federal worker who lives in Maryland, but getting to her place of work would be an hours-long journey. And so she goes in twice a week, but she works from home and works effectively. And data shows us that. Data shows us that when you can telework, it reduces stress, it increases productivity, saves government money in the sense of retention of employees. And so she was speaking to how she might have to find a new career path if this is the case, because it's just not going to be possible for her. And I looked at my team and I said, this is not about telework. This is about push federal workers out. That's exactly what it is. And then what happens 24 hours? This fork in the road, crazy memo. And so again, to remind ourselves that these are all connected. I mean, Project 2025 gave us the blueprint. And so we really have to treat these issues collectively and not look at them as if isolated incidents or isolated, parts of random decision making. Like, this is very, very, very intentional. And at the end of the day, to repair the damage they will cause is going to be very difficult. Very difficult. And so the pushback by federal workers is inspirational. Like, I mean, it's really, really, really cool to see federal workers have more guts than members of Congress right now. Like, I am just
journalists,
really,
like,
really,
so many journalists.
100%. Like, again, to the point I made earlier about how like mainstream media is not ready for the rise of an autocrat. These workers are. Like, I mean, I'm just so impressed and grateful that they are organizing. They are so freaking brave. Like, I mean, it's really, really, I obviously it's happening in a terrible context, but it's so inspirational to see, how our federal workers are overwhelmingly responding to all this.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I know we're at 30 minutes. You have like another 15 minutes to look at the FedWork subreddit.
Yeah, let's keep going. Maybe another 10 because I got to head to another event. But
Sounds
yeah, let's
good.
keep going. I don't want to stop now.
So the FedWork subreddit, or fednews subreddit, it's been fascinating. Once again, take things with like a grain of salt here. Once, like, Reddit's anonymous. A lot of these have been seen as like the jumping off point for some reporting. So like someone will put a memo here and then a journalist will follow up on it. But like there is no guarantee that all of this is truthful. Take everything with a grain of salt. It is Reddit. But like the top post of all time on this subreddit has gone from the 20th most popular, or like less than 20th most popular career subreddit to number 4 in a week. Supervisor told us to stop posting on Reddit. Amazing. Because this is becoming a problem. It's, this was posted about the OPM and our union chat. Feds, this is time to cut off anyone who backed up Trump and his agenda. But like, it's the DEI police came to my unit. Once again, Reddit, this is like, could be bullshit. We don't know. But this one guy that says he works at the VA was like, they were looking for DEI material on our wall. The only DEI we do is giving hiring preference for veterans and people with disabilities. It's incredible.
It's incredible. It's so incredible.
Like, this takes more guts than the New York Times is willing to exercise right now.
Yep. Oh, or Democrats, who was it? Chuck Schumer who was talking about how aroused people are.
Oh
I'm
my
just like,
God.
okay, can we get new spokespeople? Can we get new spokespeople right now? This is like, put these federal workers in front of a microphone. Like, this is the kind of energy we need right now. Like, I
This
mean,
is what
this
we
is it right
need.
here. Like, this stapler, so good.
I know, come and take
Like
it.
funny, but at the same time, I know it's amazing.
Like they have to be
I love
escorted
it.
out
I
of
love
here.
it.
It's unbelievable. I'm so proud of all these federal workers. I also love these posts of like non-federal workers that are in here being like, thank you. I mean, I get it. Like when someone's like, you can't do this thing, I'm like, yeah, I can. You can't stop me from doing it. And so like, I get it. Um,
100%.
it's just absolutely
You know, just so you
incredible.
know, it is, and not to go too off topic, but my dissertation, my PhD program, I use Reddit as my data source, and so I know you mentioned like operating the grain of salt, but I will tell you, my literature review focused on how Reddit serves as a really strong data source for research because it is anonymous. People are often more willing to be blunt and honest compared to other social media platforms. And it does yield some really interesting insights to how people are feeling. And in this case, not just federal workers, but also those that are celebrating federal workers. And so, it's incredibly important as a resource. And if there are any federal workers watching, like, please let us know how we can support you, right?
Yes.
Like we are here to help. And here's something else too, Kat. I've been having conversations, and I actually need to circle back with some of these conversations about how do we develop a safe and secure way for government employees, both in the state level where I am in Florida, but also the federal level, to to essentially be whistleblowers in a way that feels safer. Because even though we do have protections and law around this, I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of folks are hesitant to do anything right now that fits a more formal process, if you will, because rules just don't seem to apply anymore, right? And Trump is so punitive, as is Ron DeSantis, that if you're a whistleblower, you become, I mean, your entire career is over, and it's just very overwhelming for people to do that. So having conversations with how do we create reporting tools where people can basically feed information, right, to allies so we can organize around it and get to the right people and expose it in a way that folks feel more comfortable. And I think Reddit right now is serving as that platform to some degree. And so we just need more spaces like this. We truly do. And I hope it empowers more, not just federal employees, but also state employees, folks who work at large corporations, right, who are
Yes.
consenting to this bullshit, to also speak up, because this is the time, and no one's going to come in to save us. Like, we have to save ourselves. That's the reality of where we are right now.
There are no adults in the room, and the adults that are there want to burn it down. So truly, like, if there is something that you're like, this is wrong, being a whistleblower is a fantastic way to make a difference. I have people ask all the time how they can make a difference, and like talking about the shit that's happening in your community is really, really important.
Yep.
Especially in something like this that affects us all. I do want to, before you have to go, I do find this hilarious of someone posted this daily workday activity on fednews, and it's like they're posting during the workday. And Elon Musk, a man that posts so much, and this is coming from me, that it's like, I'm like, are you okay? Says checks out. But you did ask
Oh,
how we can
my.
help these people, and someone posted this, and you can, write and call your congressperson. But there are also other ways you can donate to their union. You can do your own whistleblowing, like we just talked about. You can sign up for news and alerts so you know what's happening, and also like support the federal workers in your life. If they are scared, if they are nervous, provide them a support system that they're not afraid to stand up.
100%. I love it. I love it. We have to protect us. No one else is going to do it.
And thank you for doing your best to do that. I feel like a lot of Democrats are, they're like, well, what if I write, a strongly worded tweet? That does the job. So
no, we have I wish there was more time, and I just have to come back so we can continue this
we'll just have to do that.
Yes, no, we have to. And I mean, Democrats overall are just incredibly disappointing for all the reasons we know and more. I honestly don't define myself as like a big D Democrat. Like, I'm not that involved with DNC spaces. Like, I'm not even that involved in even state party spaces. I'm super involved locally in my community. And I'm all about building collective power. And in my district, I flipped it from red to blue in 2018. And this past cycle, I won 2 precincts that voted for Trump. So I have 2 precincts in the Central Florida area that voted for me and President Trump. And I think it speaks to how if you elect strong Democrats that are willing to challenge corporate greed, that are willing to buck their own party system and help redefine that party, then we can have that crossover appeal and win back people and de-radicalize people that unfortunately have been attracted, to that strong man image. And so, anyways, I have so many thoughts about that, but
can't wait to have you on again.
Thank you. And it really just starts with being authentic and being aggressive and not being afraid to be aggressive. And these federal workers are really showing us that.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for coming on. I was fangirling on the phone with you setting this up. So it's awesome to know you.
It is. Oh my God.
Come on
anytime.
Girl.
I'm your biggest fan. So 100%. I can't wait to do that. And please stay safe, because I know that you get so many trolls all the time. And so I'm always sending you good vibes, and just keep being
Same to you.
I really appreciate you.
Bye.
Y'all take care. Talk to you soon.
Bye. All right, I guess that's the stream for the week. Thank you for joining. This was very fun and interesting. Once again, if you want to support federal workers, any of the ones you know in your life, that's a fantastic way to start. We all know some, and their jobs are in danger. And that's the main thing that I would say to take away from this. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see y'all next week. I think I'm going to talk about a little tiny fish. Okay, bye. Oh, wait. Bye.